The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I have a great guest for us today, but first and foremost, please, everyone, go and peep all of the sponsors that you heard at the beginning of the episode here. That is Core Wealth Benefits, Reaper Apparel, and as always, my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, we did just get a new sponsor to the Ride Home Rants podcast. That is Tactical Brotherhood. They specialize in all American-made apparel. Part of every proceed goes to helping veterans of this great country. This is a fantastic company. You can see one of the hats that I am wearing here. They have a bunch of different great apparel lines. Anything you could think of, they have it there. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 and you will get 15% off your first purchase. That being said, my guest today is currently the head coach of the Arkansas Attack of the newly formed Major League Football League. He's an American football coach. He's coached for the likes of the Savannah State University, Elizabeth City State University, and Defiance College in Defiance, Ohio. He has a plethora of a resume. That's just what I can get in here in this resume. We're going to talk about all that, but Earnest Wilson joins the show. Earnest, thanks for joining, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, not a problem at all. So, first and foremost, for those of my listeners here that don't know you here, take me through a little bit of your coaching background. I know I mentioned a little bit there, but like I said, you have an extensive resume that I was looking at there, man, and it's a lot. We'd be here all day just with going through your resume. So, what take us through a little bit of your coaching background.
Well, I'm a graduate of Texas Tech, played a little bit of football there. Graduated, I needed to do a math. It started out a little bit. I needed to do a internship back then to get my master's degree. So I chose to go back north to Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. Okay. In which we ended up, I knew that they were good. I didn't know how good we could be because they had went 6-4 the year before. Okay. Ended up winning the national championship, winning 24 games over 2 years. And was, worked with people like Joe Philbin, who's now an assistant head coach at Dallas Cowboys, but he was head coach at the Miami Dolphins, and some other guys that had their time in the NFL. Ken O'Keefe, which was a great head coach, a great trainer of coaches, and then from there, like Bobby Frazier and Jack Leipheimer. Probably a lot of your listeners in your area know Jack Leip because he was at Till. So, there's guys that was around, and I spent 2 years there. Then I went with Kirk Ferentz, University of Maine, who's the head coach at Iowa, and did well. We had plenty of NFL guys there. And we had a winning season there, their first winning season. Each time I was able to help set records. be successful in whatever division it was, 3-1, and moved on over to, that's when I got my first NFL fellowship with the Colts. Mark Broder, one of my favorites. I worked with him and Dwayne Painter at receivers, coaching receivers. And from there, went on to coach at Penn State under great Joe Paterno. And we won, they had a losing season before, and we went on to have a winning season, finished 10-2, and next year 12-0. Had all the offensive guys going to the NFL. From there, I decided to go. I wanted to really coach HBCU football to see what it was all about. Went to Alabama A&M. That's when, like, a friend of yours, Mr. Askey, was running back. I still say he was one of the most heck of running backs I've ever seen. He had the best explosion. But, I worked for a guy named Reggie Oliver. And I know that West Virginia and Marshall fans know who Reggie Oliver is. He was the quarterback. He was the quarterback for Marshall when the plane went down.
Yep.
So that was Reggie Oliver. So he was a great guy. Rest in peace. But he did well, and I went on. I spent 2 years there. And my next year, I went on to Elizabeth City State, where I got my first offensive coordinator's job. Did okay. We won. And then we went on to Oberlin College in Ohio because I wanted to get back north a little bit. And then I got my first head coaching job and for Dayton Skyhawks of the Indoor Football League. Went to the playoffs. Next year, I get a phone call in my office, and the group says, we're launching, come down here to Greenville, South Carolina to help us open up the Arena Football League. And I ended up coaching there and going to the playoffs both years under John Pritchard and some other great quarterbacks, but owners, Carl Shear and David Stearns of the NBA. So that was unique to have them running the Arena 2 football. Then I went over to Jacksonville. From Jacksonville, did well. I went over and wanted to get outside. So I went to, Benedict College, who won the championship SIAC. The first winning season that was up underneath us, our coaching staff and John Hendricks. And went to, they used to always tease me, because there was a whole group of Mississippi State guys coaching at Benedict College at the time. They said, you think that you're, what is his name? Hal Mummy. And they used to always tease me about being Hal Mummy. Well, the next year, I get a phone call, and it's Hal Mummy, and he wants me to come coach for him. So I coached for him for 5 years at 4 years at New Mexico State, and I stayed one more year under Dwayne Walker. I could take that one. That's another story. But then, from there, I went on to Jacksonville State. Before there was Deion Sanders, there was me. No, just kidding. I was assistant. I was an offensive coordinator. They had the worst offense in the country. And the first year, I took them to number 15 in the country. And then the following year, I took them to number 1 in the country offensively. So that was pretty neat in total offense. And most of us, we were 2 and 3 in most levels, but we were number 1 offensively. Jackson State went over to Hampton University, did well there. From Hampton University, went on to Savannah State, my first Division I head coaching job. And didn't have the wins or losses like I wanted, but we were going to have the wins or losses. And went over to Savannah State. Savannah State went to Elizabeth City State, where I was a D2 program, but they had more facilities than what we had in Division I. And so we ended up, I ended up being CIAA Coach of the Year that year. And from being CIAA Coach of the Year that year, went on to Defiance with coach that some of you guys might know. I'm trying to think of his name. Just as you might know, Manny Masakis. So he's an old West Virginia, Ohio boy.
Yep.
Worked with him for 4 years, and then I took over as head coach at Defiance College for a year, and then I decided to. I was approached by a friend of mine who had been in the big leagues before, and asked me if I wanted to be a head coach here in the Major League Football. So I took that on. that's the history. Besides being with the Vikings and the Colts the second time with Tony Dungy, I was
going to say, yeah. You got an extensive resume. I actually mentioned to my wife that you were coming on, and at first she was like, "Why do I know that name?" And I was like, "He coached for the Colts, your favorite NFL team. Like you're a Colts fan." And she was like, "Oh my God, how did I not realize that?" Obviously, she's super upset she couldn't be here because she's got to work for this recording and everything like that. But she was like, oh, "I'm so happy you're getting somebody from the Colts on to the show." But that's a whole nother story along the lines. Football season, we argue a lot because I'm a Buccaneers fan, she's a Colts fan, so it's always that fun dynamic in a household when two different teams, rooting for them and then trying to be like, well, my team's better. No, and we go back and forth all the time. And that, I would say that's the only argument we ever get into is whose team's better. But take me through the Major League Football. Pretty new organization. What are your thoughts and expectations for this season there at Arkansas?
Well, I think I have a good team, and there's 4 teams in the league right now. We went to camp in July, and we went for the 4 weeks of camp or 3 weeks of camp, and I felt like we really put together a good team. Still looking for that signature quarterback, I believe, but I really think that we can be really good. I think some of the guys that are in the league that you might know of is Jerry Glanville. He was with the Alabama team.
Yeah.
Terry Shea, who coached at the New England Patriots and also with Rutgers. He was the head coach at Rutgers and San Jose State. He's with the Virginia Beach team. Then it's Bill Conley, big-time Ohio State coach that people know. And he's with the Ohio team. So those are our 4 teams in our league. We decided to pull back a little bit and not just have that season in September and play 3 or 4 games in September. We decided to do it here in April. So hopefully we'll be coming back around in April and camp, and May and June be the season, and championship being in July. So that's what we're looking forward to, and hopefully and everything. And I did lose about 8 or 9 guys to the XFL, in the USFL, but I think they can be replaced, and there's a lot of good football players out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it still shocks me, like some of the guys that you see playing week in and week out in college football, that it's like, how is he not in the NFL? How is he not playing on a team? I look back at, I'm a Mountaineer fan, born and raised in West Virginia. David Stills, great wide receiver for the Mountaineers. He's on a practice squad in New York. Like, how is he, and you see those guys, so those players are out there. So it's great to see like these leagues, the USFL, the XFL, Major League Football, all that coming around, so that it gives these guys an opportunity to show their talents again and show that they still can play ball at a high level. Now, you've coached at all over D3 to FCS, NFL, HBCU. What was kind of like your favorite, I would say, division to kind of coach in, and where do you think you had the most impact in any one of those leagues?
I think everywhere you go, you got to have an impact, and I've had an impact in all this stuff that you see going on right now with the HBCUs, and they're saying they don't have the facilities or administration. I've been saying that for 10 years. I've been saying that 10, 12, 13 years. The same exact words. And, sometimes when I don't have the same popular name, it falls on deaf ears, or he's a burden. I say it like that. But I said the same exact thing. I believe that they really can do some things. I had a good time at Penn State because it was my first time when they had a losing team. They pulled me aside, and I had an Ohio boy with me, Kajana Carter, and they told me, hey, look, you got 2 weeks to get him right or he goes home. And because he had some problems, and I pulled him aside and just was straight up with him. And it ended up being, of course, the number 1 draft pick, one of those top draft picks in the country. So that was that. So our place, I think everywhere I went, I had some impact either on facilities, on fundraising, on wins or losses. So I've been blessed, and most of all, I had graduation. So when you say where did I enjoy, I don't know.
Okay.
Where's the favorite place to live? I don't know. Probably Savannah, Georgia, of course. It was nice and sunny down on the beach.
Oh, can't beat that. You know, you get down on the beach. It's kind of hard to say you didn't like it there, for sure. So you mentioned Penn State. I wanted to get into that. What was it like coaching under the great Joe Paterno when you were coaching there, and how much from him do you take into your coaching career now?
You know, almost everything. Like I said, I had a good foundation with Ken O'Keefe, and had a great foundation with him. And when I went over to Penn State, I felt like we didn't. I didn't miss a beat. Coach was a great man. He would always tried to pull you up. Very positive. I was a grad assistant. I coached tight ends there. It was amazing. You know, the pageantry, to see the down home type people where you go play a game and your stadium's across the way and you get on the big yellow, even though they were blue buses, and you rode, and every step of the way, what I remember is every step of the way fans are cheering. Every step of the way as you take that bus, right? And it means something to walk into that stadium. Then when you finally walk into the stadium, it's lit. And so, and Coach, he kept us down to earth. He kept us all down to earth. What was amazing with those guys like Fran Ganner and Dick Anderson, those guys, Tom Bradley, was that not only did they keep you down to earth, but they act like, or I believe that they had to know, but they act like they didn't know what was going on out there, you know, or out there in the football world. They were just regular people. They were just down-to-earth people. So that was pretty neat. But you see that when you're on the outside, you just see, boom, that's Penn State back then.
Right.
Because we were one of the top teams in the country.
Absolutely. You know, I followed Penn State a little bit, you know, not much, but Paterno's definitely one of my favorite coaches of all time. You know, and with the change and everything with, you know, football, and especially in college, this transfer portal, that wasn't even a thing back when you were at Penn State and everything like that. So how do you think that's affected the game?
It's made, how would I say it? And I'm going to be straightforward with you. It made the spoiled kid be more spoiled. It's made the mommy, I don't want to play with that toy, I want to play with this toy type guy. When I recruited, and I used to tell coaches this, there's two things. Billy Joel, from old SC at Central State coach, I remember going many years ago to watch him speak, and he said, you got to re-recruit your players in the program. This is even before we even thought about. And, you know, he had won many was that the championship, the NAIA national championship. And it was true. I mean, now you look at today, you got to recruit your players because of the transfer portal. If you're not ready to do that. But my second part is I used to always recruit kids on three things. Number one, the academics. There was hey, this is what our school's about. These are our majors. This is, if you want to speak to a guy that's going to be in your major, here it is. I don't care. And I was a recruiting coordinator on every level that there is. I've been director of player personnel, but I've been a recruiting coordinator on every level that there is, FBS, FCS, 1 and 2 and 3 or whatever. And I used to I even remember at New Mexico State having us go sit down with the admissions group because I want them to know what are our majors. Coaches are getting into it nowadays and don't know a damn major about anything. They just go out there, recruit the kid, they sell the stadium, they sell the football field. The mothers, and then, you know, I'm sure you're going to talk about the NILs or something like that, or the NLIs, wherever they are. But it's just been crazy that you don't still recruit the kid on the education. So there's no loyalty to the school. Number two, the social setting. I recruit them on a social setting, trying to figure out, hey, do I like it here? Do I want to put my years in here? I want to put 4 years. That's my goal, 4 or 5 years. But when I walk out of here, I'm going to have a college degree. And there's coaches that don't even mind it. And the high school coaches don't do it. The college coaches don't do it. They don't focus on that anymore. They should be made to focus on getting those kids their degrees. Then finally, the number 3 thing is the football program. Now, sometimes where you got the haves and the have-nots. You got the top 4%. Joe used to, you asked me what was what Joe put on me, but Joe, you say there's always going to be 4% of teams that's always going to win. And the 96 others will come back and forth. Now, we look at our 4%. Back then, it was Notre Dame. You're still winning. You still talk about it. Penn State, you still talk about it. Ohio State, we still talk about it. And then we talk about right now Georgia and Alabama.
Absolutely.
2 teams we used to always sit down with was Alabama. Well, 1 team we used to always sit down with was Alabama. It was always Alabama, Penn State. Coach would have private meetings. And you look at that, those teams are still winning. There's nobody else. The other ones may come and go. In the SEC, Tennessee might have a good season, but they're not as steady as they used to. You look at some of the other teams in the Big Ten. They're steady, but they're not over that hump. So, you're looking at a Penn State team that won, 11 games this year?
Yeah.
11 games?
Yeah.
So, you still have the haves and the have-nots. So, what do you do to build them? How do you work this? So, but you got to start coming at them with a kid to make him understand, because, you got me out on talking now.
Yeah, you're good.
But, when you look at this thing, if I'm a kid and I get a good deal to go to a Division I school, notice I said deal, you're going to probably stay 2 to 3 years. That puts me at 18, and I'm now 21 years old. Now the average NFL football player lasts 3.3 years. Then he's hurt. He's gone. He is now 24 years old, and now he has to find a new life at age 24, 25.
Absolutely. That's an amazing insight into it. And you know what? I've kind of not really been screaming this, as much when this transfer portal came out. I hated the transfer portal. I hated the fact that, I don't like it here. Somebody's coming in that is clearly better than me, and they're going to take my starting spot. I'll just go somewhere else and play. You know what? It does not instill, maybe if I stay here and work hard and I can earn my spot back. You don't have that in college sports, I don't think, anymore. Like, everyone's looking to move to where they can start working. I play right now. That's why, Super Bowl just happened. That's why, I'm a Jalen Hurts fan just from what he went through at Alabama. Now, I know he transferred in his final season of eligibility to Oklahoma. And he graduated, though. He played all 4 years, I think 5 years of eligibility. But he lost his job to Tua at Alabama. And he could have very easily just said, you know what, I'm going to enter the portal now, and I'm leaving. Bye, and I'm going somewhere else and play. But no, he actually stayed at Alabama, worked, and earned his job back. I respect that so much more than somebody that's just going to say, well, I'm out of here because you're going to play him over me. Now, that's I've been saying that for years, and, I don't know. It's a very complicated subject, I guess, to get into. It was just... Why? You're right. It's making, I think you said, spoiled kids more spoiled. And, that hits the nail right on the head for me.
Yeah, it worries me because, number one, you got so many things going on in sports today. And I know that you have not asked questions, kind of rambling on. So you jump in, but, you got to think now, these kids coming out of high school, a lot of them haven't had a job. They never had a job because they were big-time sports athletes in their hometown, and all they did was train.
Yep.
So they don't have really learning, job experience. And then they go into a college program, and now, like one kid just got a $13 million deal. in Florida, at University of Florida, and all they doing is playing football. So they have no work experience then also. Then finally, they get hurt in the NFL. Most of that money is gone within 3 years. I always say it's the 3-3-3. You heard of 6-6-6. You have 3 years of high school, or then you got 3 years of college, and then you have 3 years of NFL, and then you're burned.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't been looking out and learning and had the opportunity, I don't know, you think about LeBron James. LeBron James just had, think about the clique or the business group he had around him. They've been together since they were younger. Somebody was stronger than the other one. The other one was strong. And they all say, who your friends are and who to be around. And that's true because they built him up. And he's built them up, of course. But they built him up. They gave him sound advice. And our kids nowadays, when you get a whole bunch of 105 football players in Division I or 85 scholarship people, who are they building up except to go play pro?
Right.
I'm right here in Columbus, Ohio, and not take a shot at Ryan Day because I'm not. But I know why Georgia won. Georgia won because they had 4 or 5 walk-ons out there on that football field. 4 or 5 guys that was Rocky Balboa.
Absolutely.
And they wanted to prove their point. The quarterback wanted to prove his point. The receivers wanted to, 2 of the receivers were walk-ons. They wanted to prove their point, and they played. Now you look at Ohio State, and you look at those guys, they're all scholarship players. They're all studs.
Yeah.
And then they're walking. I watched them play against Michigan. I saw guys walking down the field.
Oh, yeah, that irritates me so much when I see somebody walking down the field.
So there's a lot of different things, but I think you have you hear the old Woody Hayes story since I'm from Ohio, but they were hard-nosed kids that wanted to prove their point from a little small town, or just an inner city kid that wanted to prove the point. Nowadays, you don't find kids like that too often.
Right. I refer everything back. I am a big hockey fan, but that Miracle on Ice team, the U.S. Olympic team.
Watched every minute of it.
You know what I mean? Why can't I think of the coach's name? But anyway, I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right players. You know what I mean? He wanted he already had his team in mind before he even walked into those tryouts because he knew these kids were going to come in and they were going to work. And they were going to work to earn the respect that they obviously deserved. You go and win a gold medal, I mean, that is what it is. But, they were a bunch of nobodies, if you think about it. And not to put any disrespect on their names, but when they came in, nobody knew who they were. They weren't the NHL All-Stars going in to play a game or anything like that, or even in the NBA All-Stars going out and for the Olympic team or anything like that. They were a bunch of kids trying to prove that they could still play the game. I think colleges need to get back to those types of players.
Great quality walk-ons, great quality kids in your area. I think that I've been recruiting for a very long time. That 5-star, 4-star crap is crap.
Yeah.
And it's been proven. There used to be a stat out how many guys that played in the Super Bowl that were not highly recruited. If you watch Kansas City Chiefs last night, their offensive line together, you didn't know who those guys were.
No.
You didn't know who, and even the Eagles, you didn't have to know those guys. You heard of them, but you didn't know of them. So it was really interesting to see how they work together. Kelsey kept saying, "Hey, y'all didn't know who we were. We wasn't supposed to be anything." And so it was great to see that. You saw guys making plays yesterday that was just outstanding, but they came from really nowhere.
Right. I mean, I watched every minute of every pregame show for the Super Bowl and everything like that because that's my Christmas is Super Bowl Sunday. And you know what? They were talking about all these big name players. You had your Kelseys in there, your Mahomes, Hurts, and all that. But it's like, why aren't we talking about these guys on Kansas City's defense? I think they know one person. That's the safety. Why aren't we talking about these guys that are playing to prove their worth? And they did. They just won a Super Bowl with a bunch of essentially no superstars.
Yeah. The first thing, they didn't want to say it, but really the first thing they didn't want to say was Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Even though he balled out this year, you can't say he didn't.
Absolutely.
But they said, hey, Tyreek Hill was the man. I mean, trying to go and go to him was different.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. You know, it's. I say it all the time. You know, I want to see the no names play. I'd rather watch a team full of 2-star recruits that are playing for something than an Alabama with all 5-star recruits that are just waiting their couple years so they can enter the NFL draft and go pro. They're not learning anything. And that's why I think everyone gets on me because I'm a Mountaineer fan. You know, I'm born and raised in West Virginia. They kind of kick you out of the state if you're not a Mountaineer fan and you don't root for that blue and gold. But they're like, well, why do you root for them? They don't recruit well. They don't do this. They don't do that. I was like, look at these guys on this field. They're out there giving 150%. They might not be the best athletes on the field, but they're going to work and they're going to fight you till the end. I can't remember a game where I saw anybody on a West Virginia team walking around on the field because they were losing by 14, 20, however many points it was. They were still playing for something, and they were playing to get their name out there. And, you know, that to me is who I'm going to root for every time.
I always remember Major Harris.
Yeah.
And even though we talk about certain areas, I remember some of the Pittsburgh guys were sitting around talking. And I played arena ball with Major Harris for a year. But I listened to him talk about those guys in that area. And they wasn't really as known as people think they were.
Right.
Or back then we had called blue chippers. They were blue chip. And Major came down. He played for West Virginia. I'm going to give a shout out to my man, Tyler Bowen. He's a coach at Trine. But he's from West Virginia. He lives and dies in West Virginia. But, you know, we talk about all the time, guys in your area that's in, I think he was telling about there's like 4 or 5 guys at one time that was playing major football that was from West Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, not University of West Virginia, but from West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And they were studs. And most people didn't know that they were from West Virginia.
Yeah.
So we talk about those little recruiting pockets all the time. But kids that did it probably playing in the NFL right now. And that's what we need to get back to. I think Ohio State would have went over the hump if they hadn't had those guys that understood the mission.
Right.
Most of them, their mission is they think is to win. Our mission here in Ohio, as an Ohio State Buckeye, even though I went to Texas Tech, out to my school, but is, you know, I grew up on Woody Hayes. Yeah. I played for, it was Bob's last name, but my head coach was an Ohio State guy. And, you know, we grew up on that. When we were little kids, we wore Ohio State or you wore Michigan to school. I remember that in 3rd grade. That was kind of scary. Working game membership there. But, you know, we just believed it. So when you got down 4th and 1, you know who was going to get it.
Right.
Because we were playing for our school. It's not like that anymore. Mm-mm. It was kind of scary.
They're playing for the name on the back of the jersey versus the name on the front of the jersey, which is what we need to get back to. And my coaches, when I played ball in high school, that's what they preached. You know what? My sophomore year, they actually took our names off the back of the jerseys. We weren't allowed to have our last names on the back of the jersey because they said the one on the front is way more important than the one on the back. And you know what? We didn't have a lot of high big recruits, you know, but we were a gritty football team from West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Given we finished 5-5 every year except for my senior year where we made it to the first round of the playoffs and went and lost 45-7. I still remember that. It's been 20 years basically almost since I've been in high school and you know, I still remember that day. You know what I mean? And it was, but we never gave up. Our coaches never put second stringers in the second half when we were down 45-0 at halftime. And we held them in the second half. We didn't let them score in the second half. You know what I mean? Because we weren't going to go down without a fight. And I miss that about sports today. And you can say it about any sport, let alone football for sure. I just, you miss it. You miss that grittiness and that toughness that you can see from these lower level schools that you're not going to see at these big D1s. I loved Dion. I've been watching all of his press conferences at Colorado, and I saw some video of him in the meeting rooms, and he was looking at everybody. He was like, I'm either here to coach you up or coach you out, because I don't want anybody who's going to half-ass it, for lack of a better term. If you don't think you're that guy, there's the door. I'm looking for the right guys. And I appreciate that as a coach, or as a fan now, and seeing that as a coach, looking to have that. Now, with that being said, with his big move, I want to get into one thing, because I'm always interested about coaches and, all the different stops you had along the way in your coaching career. How hard was that to pick up and move and then try to settle down again?
I think it was tough on the family. I have 2 boys and a girl. I'm actually flying out tomorrow to fly to Texas Tech. She's going to University of Seoul for exchange program, Maya. Then I have Jonathan and EJ. You can see EJ sometime on a CW on Walker, Texas Ranger, the new one.
Okay.
I tease it. It's a joke. My one son is Jonathan. He manages a company called Gold Puff. I keep asking him, what are you selling there, son? So he does think that. No, but it's a big on the East Coast. But then, but I think about when I'm up here sitting there thinking about my family. I'm gonna have to ask you one more time. What was the question?
No, you're good. How hard was it to move from city to city?
It was tough on them. I think one thing that my wife at that time we used to always talk about was we will not move them in high school. Once they get high school, they can spend 4 years with their friend. We did it with 2 out of 3 people. 1 year we had to move, or we actually stayed with him, and he graduated in Virginia. So we did pretty much with 3 out of 3 kids. 2 graduated in the Southwest, and 1 graduated in Virginia. So, so it was tough on us. She didn't like it. She didn't like being a football coach's wife and moving all the time. What's scary, and advice to young coaches, each school was going to be the better school. Each school was the best situation. Each school was going to help me get to that level. That stuff's not always working. Networking is key, but you got to also pick the right programs.
Right, yeah. You see some of these coaches that bounce around from different coordinator jobs, and you got to just think, like, what are you doing to your family and moving them all over the country every couple of years because you think this is the better situation? I always look at a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've had 3 head coaches in 4 decades. You know what I mean? Like they know how to build a program, and I think that's what a lot of these coaches need to remember. Like, hey, I want to try to build something at this place and try to get those roots in. But I understand it's also nature of the business. If you're not winning, those schools aren't going to keep you there for long.
That's right. That's true. A lot of people don't want change, too. All these things that you learn in the business books and whatnot, it's true. People don't like change.
Right.
They used to talk to me about fundraising. Then when I raised a certain amount of money, they would look at you as if to say, okay, how did you get that money, number one? Number two, let's put it into our, the HBCUs are being exposed because a lot of them put the money into the general fund. Savannah State still owes me, and I'll throw that out there. They owe me like $100,000. But the stipulation was that the Georgia stipulation is that I only had to ask for 5 years. I couldn't come back after I read my old contract and said, wait a minute, they owe me for playing these money games. Right. And I went to the lawyer that was once a Savannah State lawyer, and now using his private practice. He said, oh, that's gone now. You can't do anything. I'm thinking that he would. So, those type of things. And then you look at the HBC. I'm telling you, everything that's happened in the world of football, for the most part, I've said something before, and people turn their heads. So, that's probably why Mr. wanted me on the show.
Hey.
Because I there'd be some interesting things. And I used to tell them. And so, because I always tell my people, and I've taught college, I've been a college professor, I say, you got to know the business of sport. A lot of people do not know the business of sport or the proper way to prepare themselves to be a coordinator or a head coach. But you build your program. I've always pretty much left a year before it really got off, because it take, when you're not known, you got to take jobs that will give you a chance. If I'm Deion Sanders, I get an opportunity. If you're Ernest Wilson, I'm not quite sure who this guy is, and we'll give him the garbage job. He'll take the garbage job. And, sometimes I've taken those, or I did take them, but I've turned them into something that's more steady. So when the next guy come, like my mother or father used to always say, leave it better than you left what you came into, I guess you could say.
Right.
That's what I've done.
Hey, I appreciate that as a coach. I attest a lot of what you said to my own personal career as a comedian. Everyone sees the time when you're on stage. They don't see the business aspect of it. And like I tell people all the time, it's show business. If you're good at the show and bad at the business, you're going to be doing open mics for your entire career. Like that's you're not going to go anywhere. And it's a grind, and people don't want to put that work in. And I'm glad to see somebody like you that's putting that work in. But Coach, I feel like I could sit here and talk sports with you all day, but we are running down near the end of the episode here. And I give every guest this opportunity at the end of each show. So I'm going to give you about a minute. If there's anything that you want to get out there, whether that's for Major League Football or even if it's just a good message, the floor is yours, my man.
Appreciate that. I just want to thank all the people that's helped me through my career. I've been in it for about 30 years now, and my family, of course, and then, my family, I got my sister here, but my sister and my mother. Oh, my mother, I always tell people about the story about when I graduated high school out of Baltimore, Maryland. She would come, I'll never forget, she has dementia right now, but I'll never forget how she used to get off at a bus stop and walk like 2-3 miles to get to the high school to watch a football game. We didn't have a car back then, and so I will always honor her and know that she's the one that told me I should be a coach. And I was in engineering. I used to look at this lady, are you crazy? Guess what? I am 30-something years later. And I've had success. So I just want to thank that and thank all the people that I always talk about that helped lay down the foundation of me coaching and help me develop a philosophy of coaching and caring about kids. So I say I appreciate it to everybody, and I look forward to hopefully having a great season this year.
Hey, Coach, I hope you have a great season there, too, as well. I'm going to be following y'all for sure to see what y'all can do this coming season there at Arkansas. And you know what? Thank you for coming on. Opened my eyes to a lot in the coaching world. And like you said, somebody who's been doing it as long as you, you're definitely going to have some insights into what's been going on. And I'm glad we can get that out there. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. Again, I want to thank my guest, Earnest Wilson, for coming on the show. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.